Well, that was unscripted.
I told you I only have a few down.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Kill the Cast. My name is Jerry, and joining me as always is the ever-quotable Jay.
Sluts and liars they are, but tardy they are not.
That is very true. They have attention to details. And the Silent Hill biker himself, Kenneth, is also here.
Hi.
And joining us for this very special episode is director of The Scarehouse from 2014, which was in the June 2017 HorrorPack for Blu-ray, Gavin Michael Booth.
What's up, y'all? Jay, thank you. You just warmed my heart there, remembering a quote from my film.
Yeah, Jay always does a quote, and if he doesn't, we make fun of him.
Yeah, sometimes I drop the ball on that.
Because we do, he does his quote, and then when I edit the podcast, I put it out, and I have another quote from the movie over the Exorcist theme.
Nice.
So, without further ado, Jay, what have you been doing this week?
Work, paying bills. I saw Spider-Man today. That was good.
We have a friend in it who plays Scorpion.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I gotta go check it out real soon.
Very nice. Kenneth, what have you been doing?
Driving all over the place. Went to Florida, went to Savannah, all in the same week. And other than that, not really a whole lot. I've watched The Scarehouse. This right now will be actually my fourth time. So, which, you know, it's worth watching 4 times because it's actually pretty good.
You got me beat by one.
Huh?
You got me beat by one because I've went through it 3 times.
Yeah, you know. So, and I'm not just saying that because
you have me beat because I only watched it once all the way through about 2 months ago. I mean, I edited the film, and when it was done, you know, like days before it had its world premiere, I rarely ever watch my films at my premieres. Usually, you know, part nerves, part just out of town family and stuff. I'd rather go have a drink at a bar with them and then just kind of, you know, see it at some other time. But through circumstance, no matter what happened at every festival it played at, everything, I always ended up missing the screening. And the one time I was going to sit down in the theater and finally watch it, I had just shot something for Blumhouse, and we went. We had worked all night on it, and then it was a midnight screening at a festival. I'm like, I'm finally going to watch it. I sat in the theater, and by the time the opening credits were done, I'm like, I'm going to live tweet the movie. It'll be great. And then by the opening credits finishing, I was passed out, missed the movie.
damn.
Finally sat down and showed it to a friend, and it's the first time I've watched it since completing it. So I'm sure I'll see it a few more times in my lifetime.
Hopefully. I know, because Kenneth and I, we listen to, like, Kenneth listens to the podcast, and I listen to it also, even after editing it. I listen to it because Kenneth and I like to judge ourselves and see what we can do better.
Sure.
But
it's like a game tape for athletes. The more you pay attention, and kind of, it's the best way for self-improvement.
Yeah, but Jay, on the other hand, refuses to listen to anything that involves his own voice.
Yep, I hate the sound of my own voice. I can't do it.
My wife's the same way with acting. Like she was on a Law and Order episode a few months ago that everybody raves about. She hasn't watched it. And not that she won't, she just like, it's not like a priority for her.
Gotcha.
I've always been curious about that, what it's like to be an actor and watching yourself as basically a different person on screen. And then for people that have been in the acting game for a really, really long time on top of that, I mean, it's like, you know, what I wonder what it's like to be somebody like John Travolta and then watch Saturday Night Fever and see yourself young and look at yourself in the mirror now or something like that. You know, I've always been curious about that.
To be fair, I guess I did watch the movie without the sound when I did the audio director's commentary for the movie. So I did see it then as well. But then it's mostly just like, you know, I'm watching it thinking about how much money was wasted there, what got cut out there that took so much time and effort to make that isn't used, how miserable I was on this day. Oh, I had diarrhea that day. That's all I can remember watching it, you know?
Those are the best commentaries, though.
Right?
No, I was very restrained in my commentary. It was very much we didn't have the disclaimer of the director's views are not that of the studio kind of thing. So I was on my best behavior in the commentary and just tried to spend it giving props to everybody that helped out our low budget movie so much.
Fair
Well,
enough.
see, that's the thing. I love it. I love hearing. That's one thing I like about commentaries that are like that and things like that. And you can ask Jerry or Jay or anybody that I know. That my thing is a lot of times when I buy movies, I don't buy it for the movie. I buy it for the special features. If I've already seen the movie, I buy it strictly for the special features. And to hear someone talk completely real about whether their experience making a movie sucked or their experience making a movie was great or whatever pissed them off or anything like that, I love that kind of thing.
I did that at every Q&A at the film festivals that we went to. We our sort of U.S. premieres at the New York City Horror Film Festival, and what happened was I had brought DCP is the format for like digital projectors in all movie theaters. So we had a DCP ready, but they always tell you bring a Blu-ray backup. So what ended up happening was there was miscommunication. There were two theaters in this building, the Tribeca Cinemas, and ours was scheduled to be in the one with the Blu-ray. I said, "Oh, fine, here's the Blu-ray." And again, I didn't watch the movie. I was just mingling with some people in the bar because festivals are one of the best places to meet your peers and talk to actors and people you might work with one day. Why watch my own movie if I can be networking? And 10 minutes into the movie, it's right around the bit where they put the girl in the corset and just turned the machine on, and it cut out and stopped working. So they come running.
Damn.
They're like, "What happened? What happened?" I was like, "Well, I got the backup Blu-ray right here in my pocket." They start the movie over. They put it in. It does the same thing at the same mark. So there's something with this Blu-ray player because I quality controlled. We made sure there was a Blu-ray player in the van that some of us drove down from Canada. So like somebody had watched the whole thing through just to make sure there were no glitches. Like we knew that it worked. And then they're like, "Well, we just can't show the movie then." And I was like, no. We didn't come all the way from Toronto to New York City to not screen the movie. So they said, "Well, the only thing we can do is use your DCP copy and put it in the bigger theater when the other movie's done." I'm like, you want me to ask everyone to wait an hour and a half and then start the movie over for the third time? And fortunately for us, I went in there and just sort of humbly begged everybody if they'd be willing to stay, and I explained the technical difficulties, and I didn't shit on the festival for it's a technical glitch. They happen. It's the ghost in the machine. Anyways, people went out into the lobby and started talking to other people saying like, "Man, it got to this really intense part. Like I really want to see what happens." And that ended up rallying more people to go see it when it did screen. So we had a larger audience than we would have had in the first place. But I had been like, I'm like, "I'll buy everyone a drink from that's going to stick around. Thank you for sticking around." Then people started buying me drinks. The festival just started handing me shots. So by the time it was over, I was just happy that it screened. Like you got to do a Q&A, and I was very, very drunk. So I had all this to say, I had the most brutally honest, ask me anything about this film that you could possibly want to know. And apparently it was quite hilarious because I just held back on nothing. And some of my cast members and even my producing partner were stood up at the front of there's some good photos of them from that, just cringing as I'm telling every gory little detail.
Nice.
That's see, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm with Kenneth. I love. In fact, when I was watching the special features on the Scarehouse, you had your whole cast. Okay, so for Jay and Kenneth who don't know this, they took the entire cast before the premiere and made them go through the actual haunted house that they filmed in, and it
Not
is
not they, me. Our premiere was October 5th, and the haunted house that we filmed the movie in was open for business to the public. So we arranged, I told all the cast, like, "Listen, you got a limo. It's going to pick you up at the hotel at this time. You're going to go do a little bit of PR and press," because the premiere was in the town we shot the movie in. And, it was shot in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, sits on the border with Detroit, Michigan. Films generally aren't made there. There's an indie film every 4 years or something maybe. So it's a very excitable city for things like this to happen. So it's like, you're going to get in the limo, go do some media, you're going to have some caviar and wine. And so they're all dolled up, ready to go to the premiere. And then the limo pulls up outside of the Scarehouse. And I sent a camera guy with them, and he broke it to them and said, "Well, like, listen, you got to go through the haunted house, you're going to be filmed with like night vision cameras to see how the cast of the Scarehouse could handle the Scarehouse. And if you don't go, you can't get to the premiere. So they reluctantly all went one by one, mostly, or two by two, and we filmed it all to make a fun little prank video to help promote the film. And there's, if you ever want to see beautiful women dolled up swearing like truckers, it's the place to be.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great to watch. As soon as it ended, I restarted it. I was like, let's one more time. I gotta watch this again.
Jerry, when you come down here, make sure you bring that with you.
All right, I can do that.
Or I can just mail you a Blu-ray. I'd happily do that.
That would
take
be
it.
awesome.
Not right now while we're on the podcast, but in a day or two. Yeah.
No, please.
That
Be
would
right
be
back.
amazing.
Gotta go to the mailbox.
When it stops being hot as balls in LA and I venture outside. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray is actually going to go on sale for everyone soon, right?
Yeah, sometime middle of this month. It'll be on Amazon, and then I believe some of the surviving video chains are picking it up, and Walmart and all the retailers will have it as well.
Very nice. I'm excited for that because luckily enough, I got it for HorrorPack, and I gotta say I was really worried about watching it at first because the last HorrorPack had a movie called Night of Something Strange in it.
Okay.
And I watched it and I hated it. It was it was a low budget film, which I didn't hold it back for that, but it was very lowbrow humor, which I'm fine with lowbrow humor, but this was just straight out gross out humor. And it just the whole time I'm just like, what the fuck am I watching? And then when I saw this one and I did my unboxing of it, I was like, okay, this looks a little better. And then I did killed the trailer for it and watched the trailer, and the trailer was fantastic. Did you cut the trailer together also?
I did.
It looked amazing, and it has my favorite line from the movie in it.
It's my secret backup plan in life that if I fail at filmmaking, I'll cut trailers for a living.
Just trailers and music videos?
I would love to cut trailers. Trailers are so much fun. I've cut trailers for a few other. I think HorrorPack had late night double feature one month.
Mm-hmm.
I cut the trailer for that. I was an editor that edited some segments on that film, and I cut the trailer for that when it was coming out on Blu-ray. So it's kind of fun it's fun to work on someone else's film sometimes in any capacity where you're not, responsible for its outcome.
Yeah.
I actually do something similar. I have a separate YouTube channel where I take clips from movies and cut them together with a song I think fits the theme of the movie. And so
cool.
I have fun doing that.
Oh, like kind of like a montage set to whatever song?
Right. Yep.
I can tell you from working with a lot of bands love when they discover stuff like that sometimes, especially if they happen to be fans of the movie as well. It's a really surreal thing for them sometimes to see their music used in part of a tribute to something that they also love, that they never thought of in connection with it before.
I wish we'd have had the technology back in the day when I was in a band to do the stuff that people do now.
Yeah.
I say that every day about filmmaking. Like, if I was a kid today with this YouTube stuff, I'd be famous.
Yeah, it's actually that funny enough. You have a quote out there that where's this quote at? Here it is.
Wait, I'm quotable from where? From
IMDb. You have a personal quote on there that I did not write it myself.
Hold on, I'm Googling myself. Let me catch up.
Yeah. The quote says, "Growing up, filmmaking was always my imaginary friend. I could feel it, spend time with it, enjoy its company. I just had to convince the rest of the world it really existed." When I read that, I got really happy. When I was younger, I wouldn't just play with toys. I would make movies. Like, I would take my Dragon Ball Z toys and create an episode. I'd go outside and change scenery and do all that kind of stuff. I had to go above and beyond. And
you're speaking my language because I ruined my mother's garden in the backyard many times over digging sarlacc pits. I could make stop motion films with my Star Wars action figures. Yeah.
Come on, Boba Fett, jump in.
Exactly. Do it. Oh, we can still see the wire. We got to get thinner fishing line. Come on.
But I would make like mini explosions. So like when they threw like an energy beam or something, it would blow up, and I'd light a mini fire and hope I didn't like start an actual fire. And so when I read that quote, I was like, that is one of the best quotes I have ever heard.
That's so funny. I'm actually looking at that now. I didn't realize there was all this stuff on IMDb. Trivia. I have trivia.
Yes, I was getting to that also.
That quote, I believe there was a student documentary filmmaker that asked me years ago if they could like sort of follow me around and sort of follow the indie hustle of filmmaking. I was working on one of my projects, and I had done a music video the music video was about girls that were kidnapped, and we marketed the film, just taking a cue right out of the Blair Witch marketing. We put up fake missing posters all over the city that it was premiering in to announce the premiere party, and it caused a shitstorm of people just, of course, not reading the fine print and thinking that there was a mass kidnapping happening and starting night patrols and, parent watch alerts and, college campuses rallying together. And then there was a women's rights group that ended up protesting me in the music video for violence against women. And it just all kind of blew completely out of control, which I just happily dove headfirst into and just would say the stupidest things in the news to this group, knowing it would only make them more angry and promote the event even more, which we sold out and then some. But long story short, it was all around then that this documentary student had asked if they could kind of follow along. And I think that quote comes from that. And if I remember correctly, the little short documentary was called My Imaginary Friend. That's so I think I must have said that in an interview with them. And I wonder who saw that and how that ended up on IMDb, because I don't think that's on YouTube or anything.
The internet knows all.
It really does.
And you do have to jump into controversies like that. My the other podcast I do is about Married with Children, the show, and
you mentioned that, yeah,
and that we can't wait till we get to the episode that really blew up Married with Children because of the controversy of the women protesting them and trying to get the show pulled off Fox and all that. So it's hilarious to me that you got to do something like that also.
Well, it was funny. It was the whole thing, but long story short, I ended up going. They organized like a march downtown in my home city, and I kind of had an insider in the group that told me, "Oh, we got about 30 people." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'm going to get 60 people, and I'm going to protest their protest." So we went down and I just shit disturb anything that I possibly could, knowing that it was only going to get more media attention and make our event. And this was like a band that nobody had heard of. So I'm like, we're going to end up on like MTV if we keep it up, So I don't know if you guys are Arrested Development fans, but I brought a sign to the protest that, mimicked when George Michael goes to the book burning that he doesn't really want to be at with Anne. He has the sign that says iffy gray area. So I just carried that sign around all night.
That is great.
Very cool.
And while we're on IMDb, let's hit you with the trivia that's on here, because I want to, this sounds like it's true, and so I got to know. Gavin began his professional career in videography sneaking into concerts in Detroit, Michigan with a fake Canadian television press pass. One of the first bands to buy into his gig as a reporter was Third Eye Blind. Frontman Stephen Jenkins liked his work enough to bring him on further tour dates and hired Gavin to shoot additional material for the band as well as another project he was producing. Did you do this?
100% true and accurate. Yes.
That's awesome.
Wow.
I just wanted to meet bands that I liked. I never really thought it would turn into a career, but the Third Eye Blind one, I just shot for them in Toronto last week, and I was just hanging out and watched the show in Detroit a couple nights ago before I flew home. Honestly, it's like the greatest thing I've ever fumbled my way into, because I would have never directed a music video or had an offer. I would not have, toured with bands. The first time I ever came to LA in 2004 was because Steven, Third Eye Blind's frontman, was producing a record for, if you remember Vanessa Carlton, the 1,000 Miles girl, the piano girl,
Yeah.
they make fun of it, like chicks. Yeah. He was producing her record, And he said, hey, Universal wants to put out a DVD with the album. Do you want to come document the whole making of the album? So that was my first trip to Los Angeles ever. I got to go to San Francisco and Miami and New York and film all this stuff. The DVD came out with millions of copies of that album all over the world. And that got me another offer. And then I got an offer to work with Eminem in Detroit and shoot some behind the scenes. And all of that spins out of, having snuck into that one concert many, many, many moons ago. So from that point on, I was always like, you know what, man, what's the risk? The biggest risk is somebody's probably going to kick me out, maybe call the cops. But if I'm not doing anything too illegal or too pushy, it should work out. I met my wife that way. It was at the Toronto Film Festival at a party. I used to, again, same tactic, just show up and sneak my way into whatever parties I could, and ended up meeting her there. So there's a couple times in my life it's really paid off for the best. Just pretending to be somewhere you're not supposed to be.
The closest story I have to that was actually at E3 this year. There was one game that me and a buddy are really interested in, and it was only on display for the media at Bandai Namco's booth. And so the lady watching the area that's cut off kind of turned, and we just walked in and just to play the game. And so that was pretty cool. So I understand how awesome that feels.
Are you a fan of the Far Cry games?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Sarah, my wife, who's in Scarehouse, she just completed her work on Far Cry 5 that just got announced that she's in it.
Oh, nice. Is she doing motion capture, voices, both?
All of the above, yeah. The facial scans, the motion capture. It's all one of Ubisoft's main offices is in Montreal and Toronto, so she did hers in Toronto.
That's badass.
That is awesome.
Fun. I'm a video game addict, and I'm not supposed to own video game systems anymore, but I'm going to justify buying one when the game comes out.
Well,
wow.
We support you until you stop making videos and movies, and then we're going to take away your video games.
That's what's going to happen. If you ever see a complete lull in my production life, you'll be like, God damn it, I know he got Battlefront 2. He got Battlefront 2. He hasn't come outside for months.
Jay, it's like the guy who writes the Berserk manga, how anytime a new Idle game comes out, he just stops making the manga completely. Oh,
that's funny.
That's going to happen. All right, so let's get into the Scarehouse. So Scarehouse was from 2014, and it's a revenge flick, and I love revenge flicks. Whether it's
who doesn't?
Yeah, whether it's Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, or Old Boy, I absolutely love revenge flicks. And this took a topic that is very well known now, which is like joining a sorority or a fraternity or any kind of initiation thing like that, and it goes too far, or the prank goes too far. And what happens when two people become the scapegoat and everyone else gets to walk away? And what happens when those two people come back out? That is the premise for this movie. And if you haven't watched the movie, watch it, because I'm sure there's going to be some spoilers in here because we spoil everything. So with that said, I have to say, from the script to how the movie looked, to the acting, everything was phenomenal. This, to me, looked like it 100% could have been a big budget movie that went to theaters. I at no point felt like it was low budget at all. Or even
it was way better than some of the mainstream stuff that's come out recently.
Yes. I was like, someone pulled it like what they just did with 47 Meters Down. It came out like last year under a different name. Then they pulled it and re-put it out because of The Shallows.
Really?
Yeah. Like
fucking Hollywood.
Yeah. I was like, they need to do that with this, because I think if you put this in theaters, I 100% think that the teenage audience would go see it and love it.
Yeah,
I agree too.
I really liked it, but
if you want to call the complaint line at our distributors and let them know that, we'd greatly appreciate it. Yeah, it's it's an interesting thing. Anytime you make an indie film, the fact that anybody ever sees it is a minor miracle. The fact that the film got finished is always a minor miracle for most independent films. This film sort of came up in a very strange way. I had I spent 6 years of my life developing and almost shooting a movie that never happened. It was called Four Shots, and I pitched it and sold it originally at the beginning of 2007. So you got to think about the timing. This is post Blair Witch and pre everything else with a camcorder. And it was Four Shots. The premise was, what would it be like if the shooter in a Columbine-style shooting had left 4 cameras in students' lockers on senior prank day, and when they got to school and opened their locker, there was a note that said, very Joker-style cutout letter note that says, turn this camera on, film everything you see, you'll win a great prize. So lo and behold, they turned the cameras on thinking, oh, somebody's going to streak naked, somebody's going to set off fireworks, and it ends up being, a school shooting massacre, and the prize is their life if they continue to film. So the movie was going to be shot found footage style, but with all 4 cameras running at the same time, and you would see picture in picture like all 4 cameras on the screen, and you'd only hear the audio from one at a time, so the audio would crossfade from camera to camera, but you were always in a single unbroken take going to watch what it would be like from 4 different students' perspectives on this day, and why they were chosen, how they all kind of relate together, and sort of learning the dynamics of this particular high school and the bullying that occurred and how everything sort of came together. So it was actually 4 separate screenplays that all told the one movie. And every single time we got close to making this movie, a real life shooting incident would happen and it would get delayed or canceled. So it ruined my life for many years. And in 2012, we had full funding through a company called D Films in Toronto, and the Canadian government has film grants. Everybody was on board. We had one of the producers of Capote and Imaginary, Dr. Parnassus, and the Butterfly Effect sequels on board. We were fully cast, and that summer was the Batman movie theater shooting that happened.
Oh, Jesus.
And
damn.
Everybody went, and it's always like, it sucks way worse that people died in real life and this happened than boo-hoo, my movie getting canceled. But we lost the support of the Canadian government on that one. They got nervous and pulled their money out. So we found money out of Quebec and Montreal to finish it. We got it back on its feet. In December, we were just about to start rehearsals. We were going to shoot March 2013 when the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting happened. And everybody just said, yeah, little kids this time. This is getting tough. Because everybody was starting to realize, like, with GoPros and everything now, it's only a matter of time before people start filming their murders, It happened this summer with the Cleveland, in Cleveland on Facebook Live, which we had done a project for Blumhouse, which was the world's first live movie about a serial killer streaming his murders. So everything that you could possibly write, no matter how dark and twisted, seems to be happening in real life. But what the fallout was, this company just said, Gavin, give us another script. So we love you. We want to make a movie with you. Give us something that's not so controversial that people can't back away from. I said, well, I have this idea. It's called the Scarehouse. It's about these people. They build a haunted house specifically for the purpose of getting revenge, so that as they invite everybody down for sort of a private party, they don't realize that they're walking into a maze where these 2 people have the upper hand and can kill them and literally get away with murder by hanging their bodies in there, and nobody will question that they're not just elaborate props. And right away at that lunch, that was May 2013, they said, great, we love it. Can you shoot this year? Can it be in theaters by Halloween? And I said, well, I haven't written it yet. So I said, well, lunch is over. Go write it. And, it was the opposite problem of most films, of chasing money for years and years, hoping that something gets made, and then turning around and saying, okay, let's shoot it. So that August we were on set and making the movie. So it happened very quick.
I gotta say that the idea for the original movie is fantastic. And that does suck that it never got made, because I would love to see that movie.
Oh God, me too.
I'm in complete agreement.
I'm a terrible person.
The real problem was we were going to market it via the Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity, where you would believe that this really happened in a small town in Canada somewhere with this huge elaborate marketing plan. And that's what people were scared of. But they also knew that if we didn't do the elaborate marketing plan, then it might not get the hype and attention. So it was like a catch-22 in terms of we'd have to really ride the line and eat a lot of hatred for the movie
Yeah.
But without that, would it be as popular? So it's not. There's actually a producer and it was all very secretive back then. We were going to shoot it, and we had a whole fake title, and we were going to shoot a fake trailer for what people would think we were shooting, and but then as Paranormal Activity came out, and then Blumhouse took found footage to the next level, and Cloverfield, and everybody did it, and then everybody mimicked it, and then everybody got sick of found footage.
Yeah, because there's a movie that uses a similar idea where they send the cameras to these people, and then they all end up meeting up and accidentally killing themselves. It's called Mockingjay, I want to say.
Oh, I don't know.
It's by the guy who directed The Strangers.
Oh, okay. I'll check that out. I mean, that sounds. I love concepts like that. And I have another. Well, it was kind of funny when I came up with the idea for the live film. It was using Periscope, streaming over an iPhone. I thought, well, if a serial killer, anybody has this technology in the palm of their hands. And when I pitched it to Blumhouse, and they jumped on right away, I kind of, no pun intended with Blumhouse, it purged my demons to make this found footage thing, this real time thing. Because that was only 20 minutes long, but we did it in real time. We shot it all live, so everybody watching thought that it was real, and the LAPD got called on us. It was a very, very strange night. I
watched it, and it was fantastic. And I just have one question.
Yep.
Those notifications you were getting on your phone that were not the Periscope comments, but you were getting Facebook notifications. Were those actual real notifications happening on your phone? And
that was because I was trying to screen cap record the broadcast after, because it stays on Periscope for 24 hours later. So that was only seen in the rebroadcast version that ended up on my website or YouTube or whatever.
Okay, because I was watching it and I was just like, well, that's interesting. The killer's getting actual Facebook notifications. But now I realize how dumb that is for me saying that, because obviously Periscope would not show that.
Yeah, it was.
If I was murdering people, I'd probably be getting Facebook notifications.
Yeah, check. I mean, everybody still checks their Facebook, even if you're murdering people. It's pretty addictive.
Yeah, hold on. Can you die a little slower? I got. Someone just gave me a great comment. One moment, I'll be with you.
I'm trying to Snapchat this. Take one more breath. It's sick, but it's not that far off, I think, but with 4 shots, I think, there's a producer here that actually just, read the script and really, really loves it and said, I'd like to get this made. I still think there's life in it. I said, I hear that every 6 months from somebody. Everybody who reads it loves it, but eventually they realize the roadblocks. So I said, my deal with him was look, I'll sign the rights to you that you can try to produce it, and I would love to direct this movie. This is my favorite script I've ever written, and I will be there to make the movie if you get the money and everything in place. But I will not meet with anybody, pitch it, talk about it, or get my hopes up for it ever again. It's just too painful at this point, and I want to move on and make other movies. So if you get the movie together, amazing. I'll be there in a heartbeat, but otherwise it's off the table.
I want to be the first one to know, or us three be the first one to know when you're actually greenlit to do it, because that's a really rad idea.
I can do that. I'll make it. Hold on, Siri, remind kill the cast guys when we go into production on 4 shots.
That's hilarious. No, but I'm with Kenneth. It's the idea behind it is great.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I absolutely love it, and I can't wait to see. That was one of the things I really liked about the short you did with Blumhouse, was using new technology to make a movie. And did you played the killer, right?
No. The killer was an actor named Neil Napier. He was on Helix on the Sci-Fi Network for both seasons. He's one of the leads on Helix, and he was in X-Men Days of Future Past briefly. He's the ugliest version of Jennifer Lawrence. Mystique morphs into him, and he's a Secret Service agent that tries to assassinate Peter Dinklage's character.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He's done quite a bit of. He was in a music video for me. Neil Napier has become a really good friend of ours. But Sarah was on Helix with him, and I just knew when we're working on the project, I said, okay, I need somebody who can do theater because they've got to be able to do it live. And I need somebody and Neil's a photographer, just, amateur photographer, but a very good photographer. So somebody who can work a camera because he had to operate the camera the whole time. Somebody that I can just utterly trust not to screw up this live movie, and also has a knack for playing bad guys. And Neil was just perfect for it.
Yeah, see, that's why I thought it was you, because I was like, who is he going to get to play it like this? Because it's live. You can't mess up. You have to go. And
if I tried to act in something, that would be the thing that messes it up the minute I open my mouth on screen.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right. Let's get back into the Scarehouse. So we have an idea of how it all came about. How long did it take you to write the script, since you pretty much got told stop eating, go write?
I had the first draft done in 2 weeks. My wife, Sarah, basically locked me in my office in our apartment in Toronto and just would bring me food like a prison cell, every mealtime. And we would go jogging at night every night. And I would just bounce ideas off of her while I was jogging. That was like my yard work, my yard duty or yard time. And then back to jail to keep writing. So I had the first draft done in 2 weeks. We ran it by our distributor. They were loving it. So from that point, just once we had that first draft, we kind of knew the dynamics of everything we needed, started bringing crew and everything on board, just kept rewriting up until we were ready to shoot.
Very nice. Okay, go ahead, Kenneth.
I'm sorry. When you were writing the script, did you have your wife intended in your mind for the role that she was in the movie?
No, we don't. We don't have. We don't. There's no nepotism in it. She was actually interested in playing the character of Lisa, the one who's like more the badass that ends up almost saving the day. Right. She likes doing a lot of action stunt stuff. I don't know if you've ever been to Universal Studios, the theme park out here in LA, but they have a Waterworld stunt show based on the Kevin Costner movie. And Sarah's the lead in that, and she does stunt acting on other films. And so she was kind of really interested in that role. And it was a smaller role. And because what also happened with Scarehouse was Universal Studios in the U.S. actually came on board before we even shot the film to do the U.S. release, which was botched. But so everybody had casting approval, and because we worked with the Canadian government, some of their grants, they have a say in who gets to be in the film. And so she auditioned the same as everybody else, but they kind of came back to us and said, we don't really think she fits this part. And I said, okay, no problem. She understands. And they said, no, we think she'd make a great Corey. She should play one of the two leads in the film. And we went, okay, well, she's not going to be upset about that news. So no, definitely didn't have her in mind. I've always tried to do that, like just write the movie and then figure out casting later.
Oh, okay. Because the reason why I was asking is because that's a really pivotal role in this. Because I think and I'm sorry, I have a really hard time remembering character names.
Corey Peters.
Okay, Corey Peters, and then the other girl that was her partner,
Elena Forster.
Elena, yeah.
Those two. They're obviously very pivotal roles, and they bounced off of each other great, and that's the reason why I was wondering. Well,
they were actually they went to theater school together and were roommates for a little while in Toronto.
That was actually what I was just about to ask, if they had a prior relationship.
Yeah, they're actually like best friends in real life.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like I say, Kenneth has a point. They bounced off each other great, because throughout the movie, there's multiple times where, like, the first time you get it is where Elena is obviously like, we're about to go through with this, and starts, like, second guessing it. And then Corey just goes, nope, we're doing this. And then later on in the movie, there is another thing of that happening where Elena's kind of like, look, we're done. And then Corey's like, nope, and here's why, and gives another push to keep this going. And that was fantastic. That was one of the things that I love this movie because of, you find out the backstory and the mystery as you go on. And sometimes when that happens, I always feel like, oh my God, just tell me what is going on so I know. But this time, I have to say, I figured it out early on, what had happened. I just didn't know how it happened. And that kind of made me really get invested.
Well, I kind of wanted to do, it all really is set up for the twist at the end that Corey can't have Elena quit on her because she's planning on framing her and blaming her for the whole thing, right? So she's got to constantly find ways to keep Elena in the game because, again, I like the big thing I liked was the idea of, because even though they were the scapegoats of this thing, they went to jail, the other girls got off with no sentence at all. They still are responsible for drugging somebody and killing him, and there were videotapes to prove it all and photos. But I like the idea of people festering in a jail cell, especially if they were in the same prison, and saying, it's like sort of the, everybody at some point in their life said, "Oh man, I'd like to kill that person." But imagine you're sitting in a jail cell day in and day out thinking, if I was going to kill that person, this is how I would do it. And so it's just sort of like a really twisted fantasy that got out of hand. And there's also a lot of theory versus practical. You could plan all you want, but until you have to go through with it and jab that knife into somebody and end their life, they're obviously you're going to have sort of mixed emotions. And I kind of wanted to show that they are still humans, and for Elena, this is not really what she signed up for, and is only kind of a reluctant partner in the beginning.
Yeah, and that's actually in one of my second favorite line in the movie, which will be the one that goes over the Exorcist theme, is well, that was unscripted. Well, I told you it was a theory. I loved that line, and I was like,
is that when Elena jams the breast implant down her mouth and kills her preemptively?
Yes, it was. And when I was watching it the second time, and I was watching it to take my notes on characters and also pick my quote for the front, as soon as that line happened, because before that I was going to do the line of sluts and liars they are. But when that quote happened, I was like, nope, that's the quote right there. Because that is by far, that has killed the cast. Completely unscripted, and we just have a theory of how we do it, and that's what we do. And I was like,
that's actually one of my favorite parts. I've got two of my best sequences that I have, and one of them is, the whole thing when the girl gets killed with the breast implants. I mean, that's just to me it was one of those that's just, it was disturbing but hilarious at the same time. I loved it. And then my other one is who came up with the idea, and I mean, if it was you, that's awesome. The powdered acid from the pillow fight. Man, when that happened, I was just like, oh my God, it's sorority girls having a pillow fight and they're killing each other with acid. That is amazing.
Those the corset squeeze and the powdered acid, the pillow fight with acid, are my wife's genius. When I was writing the movie, I've seen every horror movie under the sun, so of course, as every horror fan knows, the kills have to be more elaborate. Everything's been done before. So we were just trying to desperately think on how can we make them original, but how can we also make them tie to the character dynamics of each one of these girls? What is it about that they hate about themselves inside that these girls can exploit and play on, and bring to the surface is an understatement, I guess, for the breast exam one, or the breast implants. But Sarah, to her twisted little credit, said, what about, removing her breast implants? It's like, fuck, that's harsh. And then, then jamming down her throat became my idea of oh, well, if they're going to take them out, they should come into play. And then so that in the pillow fight too, she just said, all this, every male fantasy of what happens in a slumber party or a sorority house is a bunch of pillow fights. So let's, just the idea that those two characters are always bickering with each other over anything. And said, okay, well, now they can basically fight to the death.
It's superb.
The powdered acid is actually just powdered sugar, icing sugar. So whenever we were filming that,
delicious.
in between takes, you'd walk in and breathe in, and it's like a small dose of cocaine for your lungs. You would just instantly be awake. So before in the morning, you're dragging your ass, you'd breathe in like this powdered sugar. It's like, I'm awake. Let's go. Let's keep filming.
I can just see you all on stage. Just Ivana, quit snorting the pillow. Quit it.
Cut it out. We can't put that in the documentary.
Yeah, no, that was great. A lot of the deaths were really good. In fact, there's one would-be death we never get to see, which is the dildo one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, I knew when she was doing that, I was like, oh, okay, that's not going to happen. Like, I just knew it wasn't going to happen. But what
my favorite, I just have to tell you, my favorite thing that's ever come out of my mother's mouth in the entire history of knowing my mom, my entire life, was at our world premiere. I was sat in the lobby having a drink with an old friend from elementary school who can't watch horror movies but came out to support anyways. And you know, in between movies in one of these giant megaplexes, like it's very quiet and still in there. The employees are like wiping down the counters or like making more popcorn. And a theater door bursts open and my mom comes out. She looks over at me. She goes, Gavin, I don't care what they do with that dildo, but I'm not fucking watching it, you know?
Oh my God.
Through this like, huge ceiling like room. And I just kill myself laughing. The people behind the counter must have been wondering what the hell is going on. I was like, Mom, that's going on your headstone. That's too good. And then I was just like, it's okay. It's a red herring. You can go back in. It's safe, you know?
Oh, that's great. And I love red herrings. That's a shout out to Neil from NFW podcast because he always calls me the red herring. That's
Nice.
hilarious. Mothers are great. My mom one day asked me, she goes, hey, go grab the most fucked up horror movie you have. And I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here and watch a Serbian film with you. But we can watch
it's great family fun.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'll tell you what, I grabbed Cannibal Holocaust. I was like, that's probably the next runner up besides like a Serbian film or the August Underground trilogy. And I watched that with her. And when it got to the scene where the guy rapes the woman with the rock, she just looks over at me and is like, what are they going to do with that rock? And I'm like, oh, rock, paper, scissors.
Well, my mom also brought, she was very kind and invited. She was very proud, brought a lot of her friends and my mom worked as a social worker for years in child adoptions. And her supervisor hates the C word, cunt, and in the movie we have the infamous cunt montage in the video footage. And she said she was just like shrinking in her seat, like going like, you got to warn me about this stuff. I was like, well, there's no way for me to know that that's your old boss's least favorite saying. And, just know, you just send out an email warning to your friends from now on. If my son made it, it will probably offend everybody I'm inviting. So
yeah, that's under my character description. I write so that I have all the names in front of me and I remember who they are. For Shelby, my note says, redhead says cunt a lot. that was my note for her.
Well, to her credit, Tegan Vince, the actress who played Shelby, it was her idea to improv and sing the final countdown to Europe's The Final Countdown in the kitchen in the party scene, which caps off the montage.
Yeah,
Wow.
If I ever need someone to say cunt professionally, that's who I'm contacting.
Well, it was funny the amount of. There's a much longer cut of that montage because we had done so many variations of sayings and phrases and stuff. Cuntosaurus is my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Now we need is just the unrated director's cut.
Yeah, no, I'm done with this film. That's not happening.
It's like, I am not editing this fucking thing again.
I'll do it. Give me all the raw footage.
Just because I started with music videos does not mean I'm David Lynch. This is not happening.
Perfect.
Yeah, so, I gotta
just describe the plot. That's as far as we've gotten.
Yeah, I know, but there's so much interesting background shit to this movie that I'm like, guys, go watch the movie, and I just want to know all the background shit, like the whole Jacqueline character. That character was fascinating from not seeing anything, like, because when you're looking at all the recorded footage when they're doing their flashbacks, you really don't know anything about her except for them, kind of slightly going into her being of faith. But that's it, and it obviously looks like, yeah, she's of faith with air quotes. Then you get towards the end of the movie where you get to see her talking on camera, and that makes you doing her interviews, and you're like, obviously, okay, yeah, she's doing her image. But then you get her when she's actually in the bathtub and starts going through her Christian faith. And I was raised, my grandfather, rest in peace, was a Baptist preacher. And he was raising me in that route also. It didn't work very well. I ended up becoming an atheist, but, he tried, so congrats. But he would, when he was getting closer to dying, he was starting to go senile, he would say shit to me that I was having flashback when she was talking. It reminded me of him so much that I was like, this is fucking on point with Crazy Christian. Like, if she would have, like, started talking about the roads of heaven are paved with gold, don't you want to go there? I would have probably flipped out.
I have, to put it lightly, I have some experience with a girl that used to be in my life that turned to Christianity partway through our relationship. So I'll leave it at that. I'm very jaded by religion, and a lot of her character was based on this woman in my life. And also I've actually directed a few hit Christian music videos, which is hilarious given this movie. But I just, I do like the hypocrisy of stuff. And I largely like the idea that, Corey thought she was going to torture this poor girl by, like, locking her up in the haunted house for days and not telling Elena she was even in there. But I think the line in the movie says, like, I think your plan may have backfired or isn't what you intended, because she's sort of, like, gone off the deep end into her sort of religious insight versus, breaking her.
Oh yeah, the line is, I don't think solitary confinement had the effect you wanted it to have.
Yeah, I like the you can't break my spirit, on the contrary, I'd count on it.
Oh yeah, that line was so good. I was just like, all right, gloves have been thrown, let's fight.
I have a web feature that I'm gonna put out at some point, because I have all the girls' auditions still on tape, and there are like definitive moments for each girl that you can see in the audition exactly why we chose them for each of the characters. And Catherine's is in one of those Christian rants. It's spot on to exactly how the movie's performed. Catherine Burrell, who played the character, she was great in things that we'd seen her in before. Canadian actress, lives in Toronto, but she's having a career spike like no other right now. She's on the Sci-Fi Network show Winona Earp, is one of the fan favorite characters. That's in season 2 right now. And then she's on a Canadian show called Working Mom. So she's killing it.
Very nice.
Very cool.
And the character of Lisa really threw me off, because when you go through the filming from all the showing that party night, you learn nothing about Lisa at all. Like, there's nothing there until she shows up, and when they try to get her, she all of a sudden is a badass. And
in the flashbacks in the nightclub,
you do see her punch that one dude,
the guy to his knees, in half a second,
yeah. But like, I didn't even catch that until my second time around with the film.
Okay.
Which I will say, guys, this is a film you need to watch twice, because you can catch so many, like, smaller details that when you're watching, I see how that, affects the movie later on. So this is definitely a movie that has rewatchability.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm watching the scene where Jacqueline's in the bathtub and she's got the hair dryer up, and and she's got the hair dryer up, and she's going off on one of her little religious tangents or whatever. And girl's like, "Easy there, Red State." Dude, the first time I watched it, I was laughing so hard at that line. Oh, it was great.
That's my little tribute to being a big Kevin Smith fan. Kevin, I had met Kevin face to face once, and he was really supportive of my school shooting movie, and actually, I can't divulge who, but tried to put in a massively good word for somebody way bigger in this industry than I ever thought I'd have a chance to connect with, to try to help me get that movie made. So, and Red State, that's my favorite Kevin Smith movie. I mean, Clerks will always have a special place in my heart, but I think he kicked that movie's ass. It's so good. And and if there's a movie about crazy religion out there I was going to reference, it was going to be that one.
Right. And I was actually, Red State, I was actually pleasantly surprised. The only thing that sucks, and it was better for me when I watched the special features on the film, is the only thing that sucks is at the end of it, I was thinking that it was going to be, this apocalyptic, craziness and whatever else. And I was disappointed when it didn't happen, but at the same time, it was still a really good ending. But I remember watching the special features and Kevin Smith originally intending on the apocalyptic stuff when they heard the horns for it to just go in this fire and brimstone shit. And it, he just didn't have enough money to do it. But the point is that Red State was, to me, it was like one of the pinnacle moments of his career, to go from doing all the comedic stuff that he had done before with, the View Askew universe and all that, to go from that to a movie as serious and have such a, underlining, story to it and whatever else, and satirical for, crazy cult type people. I mean, it was insane. I loved it.
Yeah, I love dropping references to like my favorite movies or friends' movies or things. A lot of last names for characters in my movies are a reference to friends that we're just trying to pay a little credit to, that helped my film career at some point in time, or other indie film. There's actually, I mentioned earlier, there was in HorrorPack months ago was Late Night Double Feature, and that film, there's a reference in the ticker tape on one of the news stories in the Scarehouse that references the massacre at the TV station in Late Night Double Feature in the ticker tape. So there's sort of a nod to that film, that these two things exist in the same universe. They shared a lot of the same crew and people from Toronto. So I thought that'd be a fun little Easter egg if anybody ever catches it.
Yeah. And there was on IMDb, I saw a thing that said the two guys that find Shelby tied up inside the sorority display room don't say their names on the camera, but the actor Alex actually asked that they be named Billy and Stu. Now, did he ask you? Who did he ask for that?
So he asked Sarah and I. Alex is an actor from Montreal and Toronto now. Huge horror movie buff. Like, he was on Degrassi at the time and a few other things, and like way above being in the Scarehouse, realistically speaking. And he begged to be in the movie. He's like, we want to be in a horror movie so bad. We'll play any part. So I actually wrote that part into the script specifically so that they could be in the movie. And then he's like, oh, the Scream's my favorite movie. Like, we should be called Billy and Stu. I'm like, done. It's an IMDb change. It's easy,
Yeah.
Nice.
And so speaking of like all the references, I was like, well, I gotta ask him, because I want to know, did he ask you? Who did he ask? I'm always interested in things like that. Now, you said that the movie actually had some tough times while filming.
Oh yes.
What can you give us a few fun stories?
Geez, I'm just trying to think where to start. The building we filmed in is an old. It's called a Knights of Columbus Hall in Canada. It's sort of like a. It's not a public space, but like it used to have a bingo hall and a swimming pool, almost like a rec center or a YMCA. And the building, like, other than it housing my friend's haunted house for a couple of years in it, whose name is Sean Lippert, the movie has the laziest title ever because his place is called Scarehouse Windsor. So we just referred to it as the Scarehouse until we came up with a better title. And the building had a leak in it, and the landlord promised, "Oh yeah, I'll fix it." And that was the room where the bathtub was. And it rained so hard. We shot in August and September, and it rains a lot that in the fall in the middle of the U.S. and Canada there. So we got rained out of our set for 2 days because he didn't fix the leak that he promised. And, when you're working on an indie budget and an indie schedule, every small disaster like that is a major disaster. Big films just go, whatever, it's another 200 grand. Who cares? But our dollar was stretched to every dollar. We had to the girl playing Lisa was brought in super last minute, like the night before. I called her in Montreal and said, "Hey, an actress is dropping out. Do you want this part?" "Yes." "Great. You're on a train from Montreal at 8 a.m. tomorrow. It's a 12-hour train ride. See you there." So she walked off the train, got in makeup, and went on set. Like, she didn't even. She has a very funny story about reading the script for the first time on the train down and getting to like the dildo part where the girls are prepping the dildo, and like calling her agent and saying like, "I don't know if I want to do this movie anymore. What can I do?" Until she kept reading and realized that it doesn't come into effect. There was again, same landlord was supposed to call the city and find out if we were filming days originally, but there was jackhammering right into the foundation of that building from the building next door. So we couldn't record any audio. So we had to switch to an overnight shoot. It's just every day there was another major thing. My favorite is it's similar to like what they say on Jaws, that all they ever heard over the radio was, "The shark's not working. The shark's not working." We had, "The breasts are still not working. The breasts aren't working." We had hired a makeup artist who will remain nameless. Lovely human being, super talented makeup artist. Our original plan for the breast removal was to create fake breasts that would be made out of a mold and then apply to the actress, because she had a contract that had no nudity, which we agreed to in advance, so everything's fine there. We were going to make these fake boobs that could be out the whole time, and then we could actually cut into and pull the breast implants from that would fit over her actual breasts. The day comes, and like I'll have to Facebook you a picture of them afterwards, because they sort of look like if a third grade student made paper mache breasts. They were lumpy and uneven and not even the right color. And they're like, "Well, get an airbrush artist and we can clean this up and fix it." So one of my best friends, Giselle, is an airbrush makeup artist. I called her in last minute, said, "Just please come rescue me." And, we're burning our total budget was 200,000 Canadian to make the movie. So about 160,000, 140,000 US. So we were burning through $10,000 a day. So we're at half a day of not shooting. So it's $5,000 wasted. The breasts still aren't working. We can't shoot anything. And now we're getting into hour 8 and 9, and the airbrushing isn't doing anything. It's making it worse. So we have to start planning a solution. And our regular makeup art, he had been hired in specially to do just the breast props. But our regular makeup artists that did everything else, all of the torture squeeze and the rib being cut out and the pillow fight, they were secretly in the background trying to come up with a solution, but didn't want to give any false hope. And they came to us and said, "What if we do this? What if we put this flap of this gelatin over and do this to make the breast?" I think you won't be able to show as much, but ultimately it'll probably end up being better, because you can't, leave it to everybody's imagination. So in like the 11th hour, they saved the day. And my producing partner, Mike Carrier, happily ran around to strip clubs and bars talking to shooter girls for a girl that would show their breasts for a shot. So so we had to find a boob double and everything, like all in one day, while wasting tons of money, but still got it done. And what you see in the movie is the solution that they came up with. But it was a terrible, stressful day of trying to get everything to happen. So every day there was just endless bullshit like that. In the old building, the power kept going out. Again, the landlord too had promised there'd be working toilets and running water, and there wasn't. So a day before the movie, rather than prepping and planning and finishing shot lists, I was in there with my producing partner and his brother, we actually ran new plumbing into the building so that we could have a working toilet and everything, like just all the things that shouldn't be required to make an indie film, that should be the most basics, all because of one shifty landlord who just liked to talk out his ass and promise things that he had no intention of actually doing.
That is interesting. Actually, one of the questions, so I'm going to give you one of the questions that we got from the HorrorPack Facebook group. This is I'm going to ruin his last name, but David Benitez. He said, It'd be cool to know the budget of the film and how long it took to shoot. And give him my thanks for writing great female dialogue. I feel like some guys write pretty crappy, cheesy dialogue for female characters. But this movie, dialogue is very witty, funny, and there's some great tension in the scene, so kudos to you, sir. And I just want to add on that I actually made my fiance, I didn't really make her, she watches horror movies with me all the time, but I made her watch it with me because I wanted to know what her perspective on the female dialogue was. So after the movie, I was like, do you feel like this is how females talk to each other? Do you feel this is real? And she was like, yeah, it's a little exaggerated, but yes, this is very on par with how chicks tend to talk to each other. So I have to agree with David on that. Fantastic job with the female dialogue. Did Sarah actually like come in and go, we don't say that shit, come on?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I always try to have people read the dialogue or do out loud reads to make sure that it sounds correct. I always like going for more realistic dialogue. The thing that we have a really good friend, another one of Sarah's best friends in Montreal, Rochelle Hamilton. She's a film editor, and she talks like a character out of Veronica Mars or something, just every day in her life. She's just the funniest female that I know. And I had asked her, I said, will you read it? And if you just come up with any funnier lines than I have there, a better way to say things. So there's at least 3 or 4 gems of hers that are in there. I think it's when Lisa first kicks their ass, and Elena says she's getting away, and Sarah's getting up off the floor, like Corey's getting up off the floor and said, I'm going to eat that bitch for breakfast. Like, that's one of her lines.
Yeah.
My favorite line in the whole movie, which doesn't get a laugh, and I think people don't understand it, or I don't know, it just doesn't work, but it's my favorite line, makes me laugh, is when Emily's being really slutty in the kitchen scene when they're whatever, like shaking her boobs around or something, the pre-party, and I forget which character says this here. It says, oh no, sorry, I'm confusing characers.
Yeah, I was gonna say Emily's the really skinny chick.
Yes, yeah, no, okay, then I'm correct. It's Emily, and she says something really stupid and about being a bad girl, and she's obviously uptight and a virgin, and she says like, Emily, I bet you fuck like an accountant.
Yeah.
Like incredibly boring, and that was one of Rochelle's lines. So she sort of like helps script doctor some of the dialogue because she just has this witty sensibility. I mean that's nice that somebody pointed that out and that he caught that. So yeah, our budget was $200,000 Canadian dollars.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess the budget on where did I have to find this budget? Wikipedia has it as 273, but
it's 273 on paper. But the way some Canadian films work, especially in Canada with tax credits and things, is you can do what's the word? Deferrals, where a camera guy will say, "I'm working for X number of dollars cash a week, but I'm deferring a couple $100 a week, and that's money that I'll get later when the film makes profit." But by doing that on paper, your overall budget is larger and you actually qualify for more of a tax credit. So you have more money ultimately to make the movie. So yeah, it was $200,000 cash that we actually spent, but on paper is $273,000 with the deferrals included.
Gotcha. And also on Wikipedia, it said you shot for 22 days. Is that true?
Yeah, it was 21 days. And then the day with all the flashbacks with the camcorder stuff was shot roughly 4 or 5 months later as an additional day.
Okay, gotcha. So, David, I hope that answers your questions. And
should in depth.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the other question that I was asked. This is by Eric. I literally could not figure out how to pronounce his last name, so I just left it off, but it's Eric from the HorrorPack group. He would like to know how you came up with a plot and gruesome torture scenes and to explain the twist at the end.
Okay, so how I came up with the plot, I mentioned him a bit earlier. My very good friend, Sean Lippert, just spent a couple weeks sleeping on his couch in my hometown of Windsor. Sean used to own bars and nightclubs in Windsor, and there was a thing where they changed the passport law, where to travel to Canada from the U.S., you had to have a passport, and a lot of his business relied on 19 and 20-year-old American kids from Michigan and Ohio coming over and drinking their brains out every Friday and Saturday. And that sort of all dried up because of the passport law for a while. So he kind of got out of the bar business, but they still had one of their bar buildings and the lease wasn't up yet. So they said, well, what if we try like building a haunted house? Let's do that. So my first time going through a Halloween funhouse and seeing it with the lights on was there, where I went in one day when he was building it, and we're just always interested in each other's projects. So stop by set or stop by the build, and I'm watching him go like, wow, so there's like 30 or 40 people that work in here scaring the people. It's like, nah, you could do it with like 2 or 3 people. Like the guy in the hockey mask scares you here, then he goes through a trap door and puts on the pig mask and pulls out the fake chainsaw, and then they go over here and pull a lever which moves the broom that sweeps at your ankles or whatever it is. I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then that's when I had said out loud, you could probably murder people in here and get away with it because you would have the upper hand. You would know, because he talked about how sometimes, some drunk patron will be walking through and punch one of their employees. Well, that happens. Well, then they have things where they've sort of built an endless loop. If they change a wall, the wall will shift, and then that customer will be stuck in an endless loop for 20 minutes or until they decide to like move the wall back and they can find their way out, and leave people basically going crazy or in tears. And I was just like, and that's where it came from. I was like, somebody could make a movie about this. Wait, I could make a movie about this. So the idea had been rattling around in my brain for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years before that lunchtime pitch came up where they said, what other movie ideas do you have? I said, no, I have this idea called, it's about a Scarehouse. So that's how we came up with it. And the twist at the end, I'm assuming he's talking about the moment where, you see it right in the opening of the movie. Corey and Elena are finishing final touches on the haunted house, and they hang 2 nooses, and it's not really ever referenced again until the very end. They've killed all the girls. They sort of got their revenge plan done. And then, they get dressed into these dresses, which are the same dresses they had on the night of the incident in question from their sorority hazing. And they hang themselves. And you think, oh, fuck. So they always plan on killing themselves at the end of this and making themselves part of the attraction to sort of complete the room. And then, of course, it cuts back from the flashback, and Sarah's rope was tied, incorrectly, on purpose, falls to the ground, picks up the knife, puts it in Elena's hand, makes Elena stab her so she can run out of the haunted house screaming, help, help me. Ultimately being the idea is that she was going to claim that she was one of Elena's intended victims, and it was all Elena's doing and her planning and plotting, and walk away scot-free. But, there was no other way to get away with murdering the other 6 girls and not go back to jail, which she refuses to do. So it was always her sort of double cross at the end to get away with murder.
And it worked, man. I love the ending. I love when any kind of media, whether it's books, movies, anything, does not have a happy ending. I like.
Me too.
I love that depressing ending. In fact, my favorite love movie, so to speak, is one Kenneth showed me called London, which has a very depressing ending. And so I remember the first time I watched The Scarehouse, as soon as it was over, I was like, holy fuck, that is one of the best endings I have ever seen. I did not see it coming. I completely forgot about the nooses, because I think when I first saw it, I was like, it's just part of the haunted house. Completely forgot about it. Having it happen, I was just like, holy shit. And then to basically pull a scream and have a fake stab wound turn into a real stab wound so they can set up someone else as the person who did it, just fantastic. I at the end of this movie, I was like, that is one of the best endings ever. So many movies, you have all this build up for an ending that's either predictable or just does not live up to what the movie is built. And this one, I think, perfectly leads up to it. I don't think anyone is calling that betrayal. Not a single person is going to call that betrayal at the end.
You mentioned Scream, and all I can think of is I'm feeling woozy, man.
That's awesome.
You hit me with a
Lot
fucking
of blood
phone.
here.
Hit me with the fucking phone. You know that was improv, right? That was not supposed to happen.
That's like one of the greatest lines in the movie.
Yeah.
It's improv.
He just
Yeah.
went with it. He threw the phone, but he wasn't supposed to hit him with it. It was supposed to land next to him. So he just he improv'd it and they left it in the movie.
You hit me with a phone, dick.
There's part of what I think makes that sort of the great escape there at the end work so well is our composer Adrian Ellis. His score. I don't know if you saw the bonus feature, the creating the score, but it's on the Blu-ray. Adrian's a mad genius with music, and he ended up scoring getting us a free string section from an orchestra for that end piece. It explains it all on the Blu-ray, but it's sort of amazing that on a low budget film he was able to get an actual string orchestra to perform on it, and that it's used in that sort of end piece.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The score was really good, and I'm actually not someone who notices score a lot, unless it's really
It's
bad.
10-3.
It's what?
10-3. The score.
I have no idea what that means.
I was just making a pun, a very bad pun. You said you don't notice the score, 10-3, like a score of a sporting event.
Oh, that was fucking terrible. You're off the fucking show.
All right,
Jesus.
I'm done.
Hi, I'm Gavin Booth. I'm the new co-host of To Kill Catastrophe.
We have finally upgraded our West Coast supply line. But no,
I represent all of Canada, and I would like to say that we apologize for Bryan Adams one more time.
for a second there, I thought he was going to say, I represent the Lollipop Guild.
Just as good.
But no, I don't notice the score, really, unless it's so bad it takes me out of it. We did a review of Last House on the Left, and that score is one that will really take you out of the movie. And it wasn't for the fact that I love that movie. I'd probably fucking hate that movie because of the score. So, usually I never notice the score.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off the subject of the score a little bit, but I was thinking about it just a minute ago. The long pause that you have right after the hanging scene of those two, I'll give you my exact feeling on that is when that happened and they both hung each other, and then I was like, man, fuck. Because I thought, because you did such a great long pause that I thought that was the long movie. That was the end of the movie. I was waiting on the credits. And I was like, well, man, fuck, that ended fucked up. And, I was kind of pissed. And then it came back, and I was like, oh, goody. We're fixing to have something that's, it's going further in. And I was like, because I hate it when movies do that. And especially when it's such a cliche kind of thing. I hate it when movies just stop and you don't see what's going on after. And if that had been the ending to the movie, it would have been extremely cliche. And I was geared up to be disappointed. And then when you brought it back and, she comes back and, she obviously stabs herself in the stomach, I was just like, that's awesome. It just made this movie so much better to have it that way.
Unless that ending is The Usual Suspects, and like that, he was gone. And then it works brilliantly.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't need to know.
Yeah.
Right.
That is one of the best endings ever. Guys, you have to watch this movie. It is by far one of the best updated revenge flicks that you can really have. Because we haven't really had an amazing revenge flick for the American audience as I don't see that many revenge flicks in America anymore. Most of them are still being done. Obviously, Korea is very, very big on revenge flicks. So is Japan. But we have a little bit less over here, and this by far.
So is Mel Gibson. 90% of his films are revenge films.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I'm not talking action revenge films. I'm not talking Taken.
Yeah.
I'm talking about actual horror revenge films. And
unless it's shitty remakes, the shitty remake of I Spit on Your Grave or the shitty one of Last House on the Left.
I didn't think that the remake of I Spit on Your Grave was shitty.
I did. I hated it.
I like both the remakes, but they lack the punch of the original movie, which is,
That's why I don't like them.
I was going to say, that's probably why Kenneth doesn't like them. But this movie is a very much an updated, less rapey version of that. it is what you have to see, because at no point is this movie boring. The pacing is fantastic, and that's one thing that always gets me. If a movie has bad pacing, I don't care how good it is, I'm gonna call it out. Because that's the one thing I always give shit to The Dark Knight. I'm sorry, Christopher Nolan, that movie has some of the worst pacing I've ever seen. It just fucking I know, Kenneth, it drags though. And with this one, there is no drag in this movie. It is constantly moving forward. It is constantly keeping you interesting, and it's constantly having you trying to guess what's going to happen next, or how they're going to do this, or how they're going to get away with it. And it keeps you intrigued the entire time.
Well, see, that's what I was going to say earlier.
As an editor, it's actually something Kevin Smith told me in an interview I did with him. It's still on YouTube somewhere, but it's kill your babies. Just if it doesn't work, if the line falls flat, if it's not a line that's necessary to tell the plot, get rid of it. If you can speed anything up, just do it. Especially in your indie film, like if people turned it on, they're going to click off just as quickly unless you give them something that's going to hold their attention. And I have a short attention span, so I watch it and try to give it a very honest thing. Like, if I'm bored, the audience is bored here. Something's got to change.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Guys, we should start doing that for this podcast.
Oh, okay. I'll leave then.
I thought we kicked you off already. You've been replaced.
Well, I think this. I think the Scarehouse has it. It definitely has that younger crowd feel, and that's actually something I was going to say earlier, and I didn't get around to it. Is that, if this movie had been really marketed for the college crowd, it would. I honestly think it would have been one of those that would have been distributed very well in the theaters down here, because I think it's a perfect movie for that crowd. I mean, not only is it a story from, sorority girls' point of view. I mean, you got that, but on top of that, I mean, you can have a movie that's about a certain age range, but it's still got the pacing and the slowness for people that are in their 40s. Or you can have the same kind of movie where it's like that, but it's like Mean Girls, where it's, it's targeted towards, 13 or 14 or 15-year-olds. But this one it's a perfect movie, got a perfect pace for the age range of the characters that are in the movie. So I honestly think that if it had been marketed for that, man, you would have seen such a big, huge, $200,000 wouldn't have been nothing to you after that.
Yeah, because Universal really, Unfriended did really well in theaters, even for being a PG-13 horror movie that a lot of hardcore horror fans didn't go to because they think PG-13 means terrible. That movie still did extremely well. And I 100% the Scarehouse could have knocked that out of the park. Easily.
Guys,
I agree.
I'm getting in the bathtub and I have the toaster plugged in now. I'm going to say goodbye. That's the thing with even if you make movies that people like, if I always say it's like in Canada, it's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to make a sound, I go like, if a movie's made in Canada and no one watches it, did it ever exist?
Did it apologize for itself, though?
It's very hard to get things. It's interesting, though. Scarehouse played theatrical in Philippines and some other countries, and it's been released in several countries. I only ever find out about it because people tweet at the Scarehouse account, and I go, oh, I guess it's out in the Philippines now. It's a very, very weird system and time for independent film where there's just so much content and so much competition, and without somebody that's willing to, to do a movie right, even in Unfriended, there's millions of dollars being spent to market that film, so they're really gambling and betting on it, making millions and millions back. So I do understand sometimes when companies don't want to take that risk and don't believe that everything is a surefire hit. But what is nice to see is, we're sitting here doing this podcast now. The film originally was released theatrical in Canada in October of 2014, but now it's just getting its Blu-ray release in the U.S. It's going to be, I can't say what cable network, but it's going to have a cable network broadcast at Halloween time in the U.S. So it kind of just keeps finding a life, and people keep discovering it, which is, more than we could ask for. Like I said, you're just always happy if somebody watches it, and it's the same with music videos. Sometimes I make a music video and go, I don't know. I don't know if people will dig this band or whatever, but it'll end up with millions of views. And sometimes you work super hard on something. I go, this is the best fucking music video I've ever made. And it'll be like 10,000 views. Like, you just have to kind of accept that you made it, you were happy with it. And if some people find it and like it, then hey, you made it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so how did the HorrorPack thing come up? Was it approached to you, or was it approached to, like you said, Universal owns the American rights?
No, not anymore. They don't. It was a company called Parade Deck Films here in the U.S. I think they've done a few other titles with HorrorPack. They're the ones who brought HorrorPack to our attention and set that up. And I didn't know what HorrorPack was, but I subscribed to Loot Crate and a few other things, the monthly thing. And as soon as they said it to me, I said, "Oh my God, that's brilliant! What horror fan wouldn't subscribe to that?" And then they said, "Would we mind, signing 1,000 copies or whatever it was to be the one of the exclusives, the signed copy?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, that sounds great." Like, that's the thing. I'll do anything for my movie. It's my baby. I'll go to conventions. I'll do whatever it takes or whatever works to promote it. It's actually part of what's been inspiring about the release of Scarehouse, and sometimes lack of release, is the next horror film that I'm doing. I'm actually going to 100% self-distribute and self-market, because like I said, I cut trailers. I've got a great friend of mine that designs websites and does online advertising, and we're going to try to make a smaller, cost-contained film and try and do it 100% ourselves. And that way, if it fails, if people don't find out about it, we have no one to blame but ourselves. We can't point the finger at any distributor, but at the same time, if it works, then we'll reap all of the benefits. Because that's part of the disappointing thing sometimes is you put it in the hands of someone else or you sign a deal, and not only do they have the potential to not market the film to its fullest potential, but then they also reap the benefit and keep most of the profit, if not all of the profit. So you sort of lose on both fronts.
Yeah, and when you do this new horror film, come back and talk to us, because like we recently joined a network of podcasts called Horrorphilia.
Okay.
Which is big. In fact, Bloomhouse just did an article about 10 horror podcasts you should listen to, and one of the podcasts on our network, the Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, were mentioned on that list. So by all means, come back to us, and we will obviously come to our show, but we'll also set you up with some of the bigger shows on our network.
Well, hey, I would be happy to. That's what I mean. Like, one of the greatest experiences. First off, shout out to Rebecca and the staff over at Blumhouse.com, because they're killing it with content, and it's so good that they're, they really do mine deep and find all of the big and small podcasts and films. Like, their content is amazing. I read Blumhouse.com every day. I love those people so much. But one of the greatest things about making a horror movie, I haven't made a horror feature film before the Scarehouse, but the going to the conventions and the horror film fest, like you as much as like Star Trek fans or Star Wars fans, like hardcore fans that are just the most loving, interesting, down-to-earth human beings, and the amount of people, like yourselves, that start podcasting things out of the love of the thing that they, a love for the thing they love. It's amazing, and how welcoming people are, and how accepting they are of films, and just want to be part of it. That's something I didn't know about or expect, and it's been one of the better things, and made some really good, like the folks over at the New York City Horror Film Fest. My wife Sarah did an episode of Law and Order SVU back in November. She was shooting, and I went to New York with her, and ended up going for brunch with them and drinks with them. You make so many great friends, and that's ultimately the best thing about my job, is that I get to meet new people and travel and make friends all over the damn place, and all people that love movies. So we never run out of anything to talk about. So really impressed with sort of the horror community out there, and excited to make another one and see if we can't get even more involved.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially having a resurgence for the Scarehouse 2 years or 3 years later with HorrorPack. Because I was actually surprised when I did my unboxing for that HorrorPack, and I got a comment from the official Scarehouse YouTube, and I was
really?
Yeah. Which
there you go.
Yeah.
Our social media person is on it, even years later. That's great.
And I was just like, holy shit! And then I started talking with you, and I was like, oh, you got to come on the show. And you're actually our first professional interview. Yeah, you're our first professional guest. We've only had other podcasters come on the show, so you're the first legit professional one we've had on. So now everyone can hear this and be like, I am not fucking going on that show.
Been a long time since I've taken anyone's virginity, so I'll add this to my my bedpost notches. Yeah.
Nice.
I appreciate that, man.
And I didn't cry at all this time.
Me either. Not like with my uncle.
Yeah, you just made me think of Patton Oswalt stand up and like, come on down to Uncle Touchy's naked puzzle basement, you know. You won't wear a shirt and you'll cry.
Oh my god, that's so good. But yeah, fucking and so I remember one of the things you said to me in the message is because I told you the episode we were recording at the time, or had just finished recording, was Puppet Master. And
okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you said you got some information on Charles Band. What's up with this?
I know a story. Friends. I can't name any names, but I was discussing with you, Charles Band and Full Moon. I mean, they to me they started behind the scenes features and special features, because every VHS copy would have, the preview show of their upcoming movies and a look at how they made the movie, and that was part of the fun of renting one of their movies. And it was sort of genius to do all of this expanded content, because they owned it, and why wouldn't you promote the next thing? And then when DVD came along, that became the standard. But all of those series and direct-to-video things, I used to love Puppet Master and all of those things when I was a kid. But God, I can't name any names. So let's just say I know a story of some of the dark days of their company not working out so well, and his personal checks bouncing for a kid's bar mitzvah. A friend of mine who had his bar mitzvah, and Charlie was invited, and the check that he wrote him for his bar mitzvah bounced. So wasn't always the best businessman, even though he was making movies we all loved.
Yeah, I definitely some of the stuff he's done, I'm like, that's questionable, but at the same time, they're responsible for some movies that are just fantastic, like The Howling. I love the original Howling. And
oh yeah, of course.
The Puppet Master movies. I haven't watched some of their newer stuff, like with the gingerbread thingamathings. Gingerbread.
I haven't either. There's some fun things like that are like bands where they kind of fall off my radar, and like a decade later or something, I go, oh shit, they got 5 albums I've never heard, and you just dive back in, and like it's kind of like binging on Netflix and stuff. Sometimes you just forget about a series or a company, and then a decade later go, oh, I've got so much stuff to watch now.
Yeah, exactly. So
I grew up watching Full Moon, so catching up with it and things like that, like Killjoy and The Evil Bong and all the rest of those. I mean, now it's just getting to where it's so ridiculous that it's great. So I love watching those.
Yeah. So
next on my watching list is Killer Pinata from that HorrorPack. That cover and title got my view.
I gotta find out. I still haven't watched it yet because I haven't fully dealt with the pinata rape thing. Shout out to 10 out of 10 Derek for telling me that someone fucking rapes a pinata in that movie.
Well, I guess it's better than raping a person. Yeah.
I mean, well, here's the question though: if the pinata is it becomes a sentient being and it can think and kill, is it better? I mean, that's like saying, is it better to rape a dog than a person?
I'm gonna. I don't know.
Like,
50-50. I don't know. I don't know what I love. Do I love humans or dogs more? I can't tell.
Dogs, humans are scum.
and
I'm still curious to know. I'm still curious to know of whether the pinata rape is the reason for the movie. Like, if it's a revenge flick based on this pinata getting raped by someone.
The pinata comes to life because the sperm somehow mixes with a Snickers bar, and now the fucking.
I mean, if that's not the plot, that's the sequel with ease for sure.
We found your next movie.
Pinata 2.
Pinata 2, Rapey Boogaloo.
Pinata 2, The Big Load.
Oh my god. What candy company can we get to finance this? Who?
Who? Hey, his Reese's Pieces stopped selling since E.T. Is that finally dying down? Let's hit them up.
No, do you know that not only do they have Reese's Cups where they put Reese's Pieces in there, they have Reese's Cups where they just put chocolate chips in there.
Yeah, those aren't very good.
Yeah.
The whole world of like fast food and junk food and breakfast cereals has gone fucking berserk. I don't eat a whole lot of breakfast cereal, but when I walk down the aisle recently, I'm just like, there's this fruit flavor and these kind of marshmallows and chocolate with chocolate milk, and you're just like, holy fuck, whatever happened to just regular Cheerios?
Yeah, it's insane. I was actually in the grocery store earlier today, and I really thought about that. I'm going down through there, and the whole side of the aisle is nothing but different cereals.
It's like it's kind of like everything now with like movies, remakes and sequels. Just like, come on, somebody has to have original ideas out there that we won't mind watching.
I do, but I need a very expensive budget.
The bad thing about that is like, for instance, your idea for your other movie. You know what I'm saying? I mean but that's a badass idea. But at the same time, look where it's at. And it sucks when I hear about that.
But the real thing about any film project is like there's thousands of brilliant ideas out there, or finished scripts. It's that mad. You know how many people and how much money and how many yeses have, like the perfect storm of things that have to happen for any movie to work.
Yeah, because you look at all the movies that are in development hell. That like, okay, so next year Meg comes out. Giant shark movie's got Jason Statham in them, and Meg the novel is actually one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book. It's such a fun adventure. That book has been in development hell for a movie literally since it came out. And it came out in 97, I think. 1997 is when the first book came out. And like literally the rights sold like the next year, and development hell forever.
Well, yeah, it's like, it took The Hobbit 10 years to get made after Lord of the Rings because of rights issues and infighting with Peter Jackson and New Line Cinema, and they all knew they were going to make $3 billion off of those fucking things, and it still took that long.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous, and I'm just like, guys, can we all just shake hands and make this fucking movie? I understand it's about money, but we'll give you money. We'll do that.
And see that to me, that's the part that sucks. Is you take people that really have talent and they have these great ideas, but overall it's the almighty dollar that rules the world. And I think to me it really, really sucks, because if you go back 40, 50 years, you still had your Hollywood side of it where it was all about making money and the Hollywood lifestyle and whatever. But you look at movies like The Exorcist or things like that. The Exorcist to me is one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and everything just kind of came together. I mean, because the Exorcist movie was made a very short amount of time after, the book was written. And so everything just kind of came together. And nowadays, like you said, I mean, it's just like, it's just constant jumping through hoops to get a movie made.
Yeah, that's
I've had more movies not get made than get made, and I had one, I can't say the plot on the podcast, but it was such an original take on a slasher film. Like, I'd never heard anything like it. I didn't write it. It's the first time I'd optioned a script from another writer. And it was horror comedy. We had one of the producers of Tucker and Dale versus Evil involved in it. We had a $2 million budget. We had everything ready to go. And the writer would not agree to any terms to sell his script. First time writer, trying to play the big man of like wants his $1 million deal, like all these things that just don't exist anymore, and would not agree to anything. And we had to walk away because the investors and the Canadian government, again, the producer, are like, look, if he's not going to sign it, we can't make the movie. We have to go put our money somewhere else. And I just sat there in the middle of it watching it implode because he wouldn't do it. So like, there's so many things that can go wrong in trying to get anything made. So like I say, it's always, to me, I actually want to start I've been working on a documentary for a couple of years now called The Sundance Kids, which is about 5 filmmakers that I know that had the hardest time making their first feature film, where they went, and all of us said the same thing when we were young. You make it for $25,000, you put it in Sundance, and that's it. You win, and then you get a Hollywood career, just like Kevin Smith and just like, Rodriguez or whoever else. And, what the reality of making a film is, to finish your first film is a fucking nightmare. If you've never done it before and had to live in the trenches for 25 days with no money and people quitting and all the bullshit that goes into like things that can go wrong. So the fact that anybody ever finishes a film, I want to make this documentary that shows these 5 incredibly bizarre stories of first-time filmmakers. But the larger idea is to then start a film festival called the Sundance Kids Film Festival And the idea is that your film has to have been rejected from at least 5 of the major festivals, Sundance included, and never screened anywhere by anyone. So because we think it's important, regardless how bad your film turned out or the problems that you had making it, if you finished it, you are now a filmmaker who gets to say, I am a filmmaker, I finished it. And even finishing a movie should be celebrated because it's so impossible. You even look at like the Han Solo movie happening right now, firing the directors 3 weeks before finishing production. It's like at any level of film production, there are massive problems. So when a small group of people in the middle of Ohio or Canada or wherever get together and say, we're going to put all our passions together and make this thing happen. If they finish it, and especially if they finish it and make something watchable, that is some rarefied, amazing space to share.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is for dreams to remain important, a lot of people's dreams have to fail. That's the exact sad truth of it. And some people are going to get obviously, like for us, we want our podcast to be successful. We want people to come and listen to our show and communicate with us and enjoy us and all of that. But we're in a very small pond of podcasts with way bigger fish. And so we have to keep striving, even though at the end of the day, we might be doing this just because we like to. And that's okay. And making a feature film is 20 steps above that. Because it does not cost me that much money to do a podcast. It mostly just costs my time.
Right.
And so for someone to go out on a limb, and you hear all the stories, and Kevin Smith is a big one of this, of people getting money from all over the place to try to make their movie.
Yep. That's the thing is, like, also the larger problem with like film criticism and social media these days is, and it's the same with restaurants or anything, is like nobody reports or posts about, I saw a pretty good movie last night. I really enjoyed it. Everything is held to the standards of it's the best thing I've ever seen or the worst thing I've ever seen, or everybody only reports on the best and worst experiences because that's what's going to get them likes and traction and to feel good about themselves. So unfortunately, a lot of indie films, and the average audiences sometimes just don't understand that they're watching an indie film. They don't understand that with less money, with not access to A-list actors all the time, that sometimes, these things are going to be made, but aren't going to be made at the same level of what they expect to see. And I really feel like in the age of social media, people don't stop to think or consider the things that they could say or did like about something before they just give it the, an ultimate slam of that's it. 1 star out of 10. That wasn't possibly anyway. And you're like, really? That's the worst thing you've ever seen, or the worst album you've ever listened to? Nothing has ever been worse than this.
Yeah, and that's like going with I said I did not like A Night of Something Strange. I did not watch that movie and judge it based off high-end movies. No, it's an independent film with a lower budget, so I would let acting slide. I would let bad special effects slide, anything like that, because I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, this wasn't as good as, the Friday the 13th remake, so fuck this movie. No, Friday the 13th remake had a big budget. This did not. So I didn't sit here and go, the movie was bad. I was like, it's lowbrow humor, a lot of gross out humor that I'm not a fan of.
Yep.
It's
all personal taste at the end of the day, and that's the thing. You're never going to please. You're hardly going to please everybody. So don't try and don't sweat it. And I have the same thing. I'll be honest. Some of the music videos I direct, I'm not necessarily fans of the band or the song, but it's still my job to come up with the story that works for that client and that thing, and find a creative path. Even if I'm not necessarily a fan, I'm not a huge country music fan. I just finished a country music video. I'm shooting another country music video next week, but it doesn't stop me from doing my job. And I'm sure for actors it's like that. Actors have it the worst. If they get cast in something, it's probably not their dream role. It's probably not for the dream pay, or that they think the writing could be better or whatever. But that's not their job. Their job is to show up and give their everything and their talent to whatever the project is. And I think, the right people with the right frame of mind can watch and listen to things, even just as fans, from the same point.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you there completely. One of the things, like, when we do on this podcast, if we watch a movie that's from 1987, we don't want to compare that movie to a movie that came out in 1994. Like, compare it in the time that it came out. Is it cliche then, or is it cliche now? Because if it's cliche now, you can't call it cliche, because it wasn't cliche at the time. Like, and I think a lot of people will just put any movie they see against every movie they've seen, and that's not fair. Keep it in context with its budget, when it was released, how it was made. All of those things matter when you're looking at a movie. If you're going to critique it fairly.
I like to take movies that come out in a certain time period, and I will use how the state of things are. Like, a lot of times you'll hear in commentaries and stuff like that, where you'll hear how a movie, okay, this is what was going on because this was the war in Vietnam and things like that. Like a movie that came out back in that time period, or whatever's going on in the world. But at the same time, you got to look at what's going on in the minds of the people at that time. And I'll go back to this one again, because yet again, like I said before, The Exorcist is one of my favorite movies. But at the same time, when that movie came out, and the others that came out of that time period, where you've got Rosemary's Baby and the ones that really have to deal with Christianity and things like that, movies weren't regularly coming out like that, like they are now. Like, every few months, we got another possession movie coming out. But back then that wasn't happening, so it was a new thing. And I think, that's one of the biggest things that I have to say about that particular movie is in 1973, the religious connotations that go along with it. It was a perfect time period for that movie to come out because of the way that people react to it and the publicity that it got. I'm one of those firm believers that there's no such thing as positive or negative publicity. Publicity is publicity. And so, pushing it and going further with that and having those things, people hating that movie because they said it was, the devil had come up straight from hell and everything else going along with it. All that did was just fuel the fire and make the movie that much more, have that much more of a following, and everybody has seen it and everybody knows it. So I think that has a lot to do with the way that we judge movies, is looking at all the different parameters that are around the time period that it was released and how it affected, not just the effects of the world, but how it affected the audience.
Well, look at even comedy. We now live in a post South Park and a post Family Guy world. But at one point in time, Bart Simpson was too offensive, and parents were writing the network to try to get the show canceled. You're like, yeah. Simpsons is the tamest thing in the world now.
Yeah, my mom wouldn't let me watch The Simpsons when I was a kid.
Yeah, my wife was the same way. She never got to watch The Simpsons when she was a kid. And I'm like, really? I mean,
my parents didn't.
South Park must have just made those same parents heads explode.
Yeah, but my parents didn't want me to watch Beavis and Butthead either. I did it anyway, but they didn't want me to.
Yeah. My dad wouldn't let me watch South Park, but he had no problem renting The Evil Dead for me.
Well, on all of this note, my wife's not going to let me eat dinner unless I wrap this up soon. And,
that's a good point. Oh, and tell her hi for us. And
you've also all seen how well she can work a kitchen knife. So
that's true. Okay, so
her threats are not in vain. Yeah.
So before we go, pimp out whatever you need to pimp out, like whatever you're doing next, where they can find you, where they can reach you, all of that. Throw it at us.
Oh, I'm pretty accessible. It's GavinMichaelBooth.com, and from there you can find my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm always shooting a bunch of music videos. I'm prepping to shoot a new horror movie later this year, and a non-horror movie, a nice little unromantic love story, I'll call it. And yeah, so I'm shooting 2 movies this year and a bunch of music videos, and that's it. Just the rest of the time, try to take some time off this summer and live life, see some friends, and continue I've only been living in the U.S. as a green card holder for a couple of years, so even though I've lived in L.A. now for a couple of years, I still haven't really explored much. I haven't been out to Joshua Tree, so it's trying to live life and not just make work the only thing that I ever do. But with Scarehouse, it is going to be on sale on Amazon and other retailers that still carry these Blu-ray things that some people still collect, apparently. And it's going to have some TV air dates, and there is the Scarehouse movie.com that has everything. Scarehouse on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Find us there, follow along, and like I say, anybody listening, any other questions, anything else you have about the movie, by all means, reach out. Somebody will always respond. We're big fans of anybody who wants to take the time to watch the movie and be engaged by anything related to the film afterwards.
Yes, and by all means, tell Sarah we loved her performance, and we don't think she's a lesbian.
That's actually that moment. Even when I did my audio commentary, that made me laugh out loud. That's the same. That's right after the well, that was unscripted.
Yeah,
and then just follows it up with like, what? Not even fazed by the murder that just happened. Just like, why does everybody think I'm a lesbian? Because she says something about her being a dyke or something earlier in the thing. I really like that, and Sarah laughs about that because she, in real life she's very tomboyish and, surfs, would rather go surfing than shopping, and does all this action stunt stuff. So quite often people believe she's a lesbian or cast as lesbian roles. So we just kind of worked that into the script.
That was fantastic. So without further ado, guys, please check out the Scarehouse. Check out everything he's got going on. It's wonderful. For all of us here at Kill the Cast, we'll see you next time. All links are in the description for Facebook group, our YouTube, all of that nonsense, HorrorPack, buy a Kill the Cast shirt, whatever you want to do. Keep an eye out for the Scarehouse coming out on Blu-ray, because trust me, it is worth the money for the special feature of watching them go through the actual Scarehouse. That is worth every penny.
I thank you guys for having me on, and I also just point out I love the name Kill the Cast. It's a great name for a podcast.
I'm actually proud of that.
All
one.
Jerry.
That
Yeah.
was all me.
You will have a lot of directors on the show like myself who'd be like, I have some cast members I'd like to kill.
We actually do that every once in a while. We review a movie. We'll talk about what cast member we just wanted to kill. We just hated them, wanted them dead. I don't have any for yours.
I love A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's my favorite horror movie ever made. Always been my favorite since a kid.
It, Jerry.
Fuck you, Jay.
Why, do you hate Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah, I don't like Nightmare on Elm Street. I think the concept is great, but I think the execution was terrible.
Oh, I saw it when I was young, but I hadn't seen it in 6 or 7 years. I watched it a couple weeks ago, and like, my God, do I want to kill Nancy?
Thank you.
Holy shit, is she annoying? And I was watching with a friend. My friend's wife had never seen it before. That's how we ended up watching it. And she goes like, oh my God, I hope she dies first, because like, if she's the main character, kill me. And I was like, wow, like, she is a pretty bad actress. But you watch things when you're a kid sometimes, and you don't notice any of that. But the older you get, the more viewings you give something, it does start to fall apart a little bit. But it's the magic of the story and everything else that trumps all of those elements. It's like I always say, like, listen, like, Clerks is an ugly shot movie with bad sound, mostly terrible bands on the soundtrack, and some of the most horrific, boring, flat actors of all time. But that script and that concept is so fucking good and was so fucking fresh at the time that the movie will hold true forever.
Yeah.
The dialogue was superb in that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if all of you have not heard our Nightmare on Elm Street episode, listen to it, because if you love Nightmare on Elm Street, you're going to fucking hate me. But most of my complaints are towards Heather, because I think if they replaced her with any actress who knew how to close their fucking mouth, the movie would have been way more enjoyable.
Didn't kill her, Dad.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so fucking terrible. Oh, don't get me started on Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll be here forever. So for Kill the Cast, thank you for joining us. For Gavin Michael Booth, who may or may not be related to a certain person who killed a president, that's to be remained.
I could say something about creating a sequel to that event, but I'll probably lose my green card. Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, man.
Thank you for joining us. Jay, any parting words?
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. This is a lot of fun.
Very nice. Kenneth, any parting words?
Same thing, man. It was awesome. We really appreciate it.
And
Oh no, and it's all thanks from this side. I love it. Anybody who wants to take the time to help promote our movie and and shower me with praise for loving the movie, I'll never say no. You know?
Yeah, no, I didn't suck your dick enough on this episode, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my dick in my hand the whole time. I was just like, these guys are so excited. I don't know what to do with it.
Tell me about how good my direction was. Tell me.
Yeah.
And of course, Gavin, do you have any last words?
No, I'll just leave it at I had my dick in my hands the whole time. Yeah.
Very good. And
Adding that to IMDb right now.
yeah, he did a podcast jacking off the entire time.
Perfect. And I won't ever take it down. Yep, you can stay there forever.
Yeah, I can't wait till your mom hears this interview.
Oh God. Yep.
Anyway,
Sorry, Mom.
yeah, for real. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you next time on Kill the Cast.